What is up, my little Deinos? Vepsis here, your coach of the Helsinki Hydreigons, and we are here for the UPBA Season 4 Week 5 battle versus CherryManCake and his team being the Philadelphia Melmetals. Now you can notice from the webcam itself and my commentary, it's not on sync and it's going to be a post commentary unfortunately for my behalf. And that is due to the fact that Aquarius, who was a visiting star on my previous videos, she had her week 5 battle as well from my computer before leaving, and she did a post commentary turning off the microphone from my OBS, and I had no idea she did that, and I did not notice to double check it before I started recording the week 5 battle versus CherryManCake. So without my notice, I didn't have my microphone on to be picked off, and it was a little annoying afterwards to realize this, but there's nothing I can do right now, so we're gonna be making our best effort of doing this as a post-com. Thankfully, I remember the battle relatively well and my thought progress, even though it's been a while now since I'm recording this, because I didn't really notice this being the case until I started to try to do a little bit of editing for this video in itself. But regardless, as I've been rambling about this, you're gonna be seeing my team of 6 that I'm bringing. So I'm bringing a heavy duty boots RESHIRAM with blue flare, Draco Meteor, Toxic and Roost. Relatively bulky, so it can leave a earthquake from Guardsome unless it's boosting item from full, and it can also take a hits better from a Solgaleo. Then we have a heavy duty boots sturdy aggron, which is a failsafe to one of its setup threats. With Heavy Slam, Earthquake, Avalanche and Metal Burst. Metal Burst is pretty cool for something like Barbarico, which I could not otherwise be able to OHKO. Then we have a Choice Scout Nidoqueen with 3 attacks, including Ice Beam and Stealth Rocks. We have a leftover Special Defensive Corviknight. We have a Physical Defensive Type Null with Icy Wind yet again. And then we have a Choice Scout Boss Wolf. But now we are getting to the point that battle will be starting, so you can see the team preview in itself, and you can obviously see my items as well, what I'm gonna be bringing for this. So he did decide to bring Gengar, Guardsome, Solgaleo, Rotom-Mow, Barbarico and Sylveon. And these were pretty much the 6 that I was kinda expecting, like the hard 4 mons that I fully expected to come were the Gengar, the Guardsome, the Solgaleo, which is his Uber, and Sylveon, which I thought would for sure come as well. The other 2 were kind of my mixed bag that what he could bring, but Barbarico, Rotom-Mow did make a lot of sense from his remaining options that he had. And here I am debating a lead of choice that what I wanted to lead with, and I started to lean towards leading with RESHIRAM because I didn't want to lead badly versus a Rotom-Mow. I wanted to lead well versus a Solgaleo. I don't lose to Gengar immediately turn 1 versus it. The only things that are forcing me out is Guardsome that I have Type Null for, and Barbarico, and if Barbarico would be a lead, I expect to be Focus Sash, so I would want to Draco Meteor turn 1 to break that Sash and go from there. But that's basically the thought progress that I was going into these lead scenarios. I could have maybe chosen something like a Type Null as well as a safe lead, but I wanted to have a good lead scenario versus the Solgaleo that I was a little worried that could be a lead of choice, and didn't have an immediate answer to it other than my RESHIRAM. But he does lead with the Barbarico, and this is a little scary situation. I do live guaranteed 1 Stone Edge from this, thankfully, with my bulk that I had on physical side, and how naturally bulky RESHIRAM as it is, and naturally as well. But it means that if it's going to be Shell Smashing up, I had to worry that who is gonna be taking that hit, because I cannot go into my Aggron freely, because then the sturdy would be broken, then it's not the failsafe that I needed it for. But here I'm kind of debating my options that are how I wanted to play around this, but then I opted to commit to the Draco Meteor that I kind of knew that I had to commit to regardless, to be able to potentially break a Sash, which I thought would be the most likely item for Barbarico if it's gonna be a lead. And after Shell Smash we don't see Wider popping off, and we do see him going for the Shell Smash. So this is where I had to pay attention on it, if it's Wider or not. And you're gonna be noticing that it's not gonna be Wider, and this made me think that it was a Focus Sash set. So here I had to pick my choice that who I go into, who I let take damage from this, and Type Null will end up being the choice that I make. Thankfully it's physically defensive, so it can actually take their hits relatively well. but it does mean that I become a little bit more vulnerable to something like a Godsump that Type Null was dedicated answer to for this battle. But I have things like Corviknight as immunity and resistant to its Dragon Stab, and I'm specially defensive, so I can take a fire move from special side if it's Fire Blast. And I have Scarf Buzzwole as well as a resistant and be able to outpace it unless it's Scarf in itself or had a scale shot off. He does go for the Stone Edge, we do take it just fine, and I knew I can take a guarantee another hit, and there was no chance for him to crit me with Stone Edge or the cross chop that he had, even though there are high chance to crit because of my battle armor ability. So Type Null, being the champion, lives at 10 HP, but this means that it's basically a sack at this point. There's no chance for me to rest up versus anything else that he has remaining. But I do manage to get rid of one of the bigger setup threats versus me in the Barbarian itself. So I do have now other measures that I can still utilize Aggron, for example, for like Godsump as a failsafe, or for the Solgaleo if necessary. But I go back to the RESHIRAM because yet again he doesn't have a good answer for this thing. And now Barbarigo being gone is one of the only things that can really force me out and do much damage. Now the only thing that can really do that is a Godsump, and that is the one that he decides to go into. Now here, I did not think he's gonna be going for a fire move. I feel like he has to respect the threat in front of him. Being the RESHIRAM in itself being my Uber, so I felt relatively comfortable going into my Corviknight. And then I can kinda see that if this is a choice of Godsump or not. Cause the funny thing with CherryManCake, even though this is the first time I got to play him, I've seen him playing in a Uber League before. Versus Grandmaster D-Ray who had a RESHIRAM. And back then he got swept by Dragon Dance RESHIRAM. So I thought there's a solid chance this Godsump might be choice Scarf versus me because of that. So he would try to prevent that to happen yet again when he go up against RESHIRAM. He does go for this scale shot right away, which was an interesting move of choice if I started to think if it's choice Scarf or not. Now scale shot is not a move that you usually would run on it. So there was a chance that it would be something else other than the setup. It could be a Haban Berry, it could be boosting item like Expert Belt, for example, could be very well a choice. Which I thought, honestly, like with a setup set, Expert Belt was the one that I worried the most of. So Choice Scarf was still a optional item of choice depending on if he's able to swap his moves or not. Either this turn or later on. But it was now a little bit less likely that it's gonna be Scarf. But I do go for the U-turn as he doesn't stay in with this. He goes into Rotom-Mow. And this is really good for me because now I'm able to get a good amount of chip on this thing. And now I can go freely into my RESHIRAM and pretty much click Blue Flare freely from there on out. Even though the Sylveon is still likely switching on it with the natural special bulk that it has, I can always Toxic it afterwards because Sylveon doesn't really threaten a RESHIRAM by any means. So I can always get it on a timer, and I'd rather hit the thing what is in front of me. And off the chance he makes a aggressive swap into a Godsump predicting a fire move, I want to be able to at least damage it and potentially catch a burn, because Blue Flare not only has a high base power move of 130 base power, it also has 20% chance of burning. So there's always a cases that if opponent has to make aggressive swap into Blue Flare, I can punish them with that small chance of burning them. But he does go into the Sylveon, we don't see the leftovers, so I immediately started to think that this has to be some sort of special defensive. But now not seeing leftovers, I started to think it might be actually a Salt Vest Sylveon, because Reducing Berry could maybe make sense for Nidoqueen like a Kebia Berry, but I thought that would be unlikely. So I started to think this could be a Salt Vest once I saw this damage. So I go for the Toxic, because that should be there to stay. Unless it's gonna be the Reducing Berry, that I would not think it would be otherwise. But he goes for the Mystical Fire. And does very beautiful damage to us. He does like 9 HP damage to us while we got it on a timer with the Toxic in itself. And he was predicting my Corviknight, but the Corviknight is running Mirror Armor, as you can tell as I'm swapping into it. So back off. He does go for the Psyshock, which was an interesting move to click over Mystical Fire. Because I thought if he's gonna be clicking Mystical, I tried to think I swap, I would think he clicks still Mystical Fire. Or he's gonna be clicking Hyper Voice, but he clicked Psyshock, which made me think even more likely that it's definitely a Salt Vest. There's no way you don't have room slots for both of those covers without being like some sort of like 4 attack set, and with the based on how well it took the hit, it definitely seemed to me to be a assault vest. Now I go for the Iron Head, as he does outpace me, so he had some speed creep on this Sylveon, which is good on him. But now the Mirror Armor will bounce it off, and now Iron Head should be able to kill it unless he was a reducing berry all this time for steel type moves, but that's not going to be the case, and we take out the Sylveon, and we should be gaining a little bit of HP back to be around 56% with the leftovers now being gained back. So we have a decent amount of health without Corviknight, and now the Sylveon is gone, which was the only soft check that he quote-unquote had for Reshiram, and as we saw, it wasn't really a much of a check for Reshiram anyways, based on how it got worn down by the Toxic very quickly. So Sylveon is now gone, Barbarigo is now gone, but now some of the big threats are still left, including the Uber, which is going to be the Solgaleo, and this to me started to scream something like Wild Shots or Flail Blitz to be his coverage. But I wanted to just swap into my Type Null freely and see what this Solgaleo is all about, and then get my free swap into Reshiram, because I don't want him to go for a attacking move that would be potentially critting my Reshiram, like a Wild Shot crit, and then get a high roll with Earthquake. So I was kind of like playing towards very safely and not make sure that my Reshiram gets any kind of unlucky scenarios happening on a swapping, and try to preserve my Type Null later as a sack. So I opted to use my sack play with the Type Null now to get my Reshiram in for free. And now I'm just gonna be clicking Blue Flare, because again, now the only fire resistance that he had left in the back to be able to even take a Blue Flare relatively well is his Godsop. And again, 20% of chance getting a burn. I could punish him to try to make that kind of swap, and everything else basically dies to this Blue Flare, including the Solgaleo. Even though it has ability that is basically a filter to reduce the super effective hits, my ability is basically Mold Breaker. But that doesn't come into play as he swaps into Rotom-Mow, and we miss our Blue Flare, but thankfully the second one right after will land it, and we do manage to take out the Rotom-Mow. So Rotom-Mow is gone. Didn't really get to do too much other than that he had to take a U-turn, now Blue Flare to his face. So that's good for us, that we didn't have to worry about any kind of potential screens, any kind of potential status that he could have done, because there's not really much else he could have done to our Reshiram. But now he does go into the Godsop in itself, and this is where I'm debating that if I should actually go hard into Buzzwole, because I would like to keep my Corviknight around if it's a Choice Scarf set, to have a proper Crown Immunity in the back. And if it's not Choice Scarf, my Choice Scarf Buzzwole would outpace it the turn after and kill it with the Ice Punch. So I decide that I make this hard swap, and thinking that it's a Scale Shot already being revealed, it was unlikely to be a Choice Scarf set of its own. So I went hard into my Buzzwole, knowing that I can take any one hit and kill it back with the Ice Punch, and therefore able to preserve Corviknight for me. As he does go for the Sword Dance on my swap out, which was a very aggressive play, but you're gonna see why he was able to afford that later on. But I go for the Ice Punch, thinking that I can OHKO this thing, as I should be, barring a Yachi Berry or the item you're gonna be seeing him have, because I thought I was killing it as you see me getting a fist bump. But then I noticed the Godsop is not falling, so he was Focus Sash all this time. So that's why he was able to afford to make the Sword Dance in front of my Reshiram, which otherwise would look like very aggressive play. But his item of choice being Focus Sash, which is a very cool option to have, but relatively risky considering that he kept it in the back. If I had at any point get up my Stealth Rocks, that item would have been useless, but it turned out to be the case that he was able to preserve it. And Buzzwole, being naturally bulky, even though we are not fully physically defensive or anything, we are offensive Choice Scarf, we were able to take a +2 Fire Fang from a Godsop and 2 Rough Skins, and we are still alive, and now we gain +1 attack. And at this point, when he has Gengar and the Solgaleo left, I'm basically going to be committed to staying with this Buzzwole. I started to now look, as you can tell from my another screen, just to make sure that there's no kind of weird setup mode that I should really worry about coming from this. It gets access to Calm Mind and Agility, but it doesn't get access to like Sword Dance or anything or Bulk Up. So I figured that I'm gonna just stay in, get a little bit of chip, again potentially breaking a Sash or whatever, and putting it at range for certain to be in of Solgaleo, my RESHIRAM in itself. So I should be always fine going to my RESHIRAM, which I end up doing. And I'm gonna be clicking Blue Flare. And ideally, as long as nothing goes wrong, as RESHIRAM might be able to clean out the game by clicking Blue Flare and Trade Committee on the Gengar. But we'll see, because this thing could still have Earthquake, and if it's gonna be, I don't know, getting a super crit, I don't think even a like expert build crit can kill me. So the only thing that could really happen to mess me up would have been that I missed that as he Earthquakes me. But thankfully we do land it, and we saw that we outpaced the Solgaleo, and that should not normally happen speed tier wise, because Solgaleo is base 97 speed and I'm base 90 with RESHIRAM. But he turned out to be the case, he was running Adamant. So with the speed creep that I had, I outpaced that in it. So which wasn't intentional, but he was actually running Agility on it, which is why he was running Adamant with it. And now we do see the Gengar. We see that it's going for a nasty plot, so I'm thinking again that, is this another Focus Sash Monarch keeping in the back, or is he just banking me to miss a move and try to make something happen? But we do land the Draco Meteor, and we do kill out the Gengar. So that's going to be a good game to CherryManCake. This is the first time I got to play him. And he is definitely somebody you want to go check from his side. He's one of the most positive people that you can meet in a draft league scene. I've only got to meet him like very briefly now recently, especially when he took over this team over Under the Radar. Which I'm kind of sad that Under the Radar dropped right before I got to play him, because this was a similar case in UBL that I didn't get to play him, even though I was highly looking forward to do it. But nothing to take away from this pleasure of playing CherryManCake. He's a very, very positive guy, and make sure to check his side out and subscribe to him, and make sure to check out all of the courses in the league in itself for week 5 battles. I'm sure there were a lot of action-packed battles, and this was a very fast-paced battle from our end as well. And I'm very happy how the team performed in itself. And next week we are going up against Badass Frostlass, and he's gonna be another coach that I haven't got the chance to play in draft league scene before. So there's gonna be quite a few weeks now coming ahead that I do get to play new people that I haven't got to play in Wi-Fi scene or in any league in that sense. So it's always nice to get this kind of experience out of the way, because I've been around for a long time, so I have got to play quite a few people by now. But it was a pleasure to play CherryManCake, and again, like I said before, make sure to check him out. And until week 6, when I go up against Badass Frostlass, thank you all for watching, and I'm gonna see you guys later.